All right, so now I just want to really quickly go over your math lesson one. And again, this is going to be a one-on-one instructional arrangement. So you're only working with one student. If you can do early numeracy, cool. If a student is working on another skill, we want as much as possible to make sure that the instruction that you are providing is aligned with the student's IEP, their state standards for their grade level state standards, or whatever's being covered in class. So here is a description, and I'm gonna like break it down for you in just a second, but I'm gonna give you a really brief overview, and then we're gonna actually look at your planning form because that breaks it down in a more clear manner than I could do by reading through this. So really what you're gonna do is you're gonna develop and submit a one-on-one math lesson plan, and you're gonna use our math lesson plan template. This is not the explicit instruction one because we're not using explicit instruction all the time, right? We're not always using model lead test, I should say. So you're going to use our class lesson template, and really what we're looking for is you demonstrating that you can develop lessons that align with our state standards, which for our students would be the essential elements, unless they're working on a general education curriculum in math. And I want you to make sure that you're doing it in a one-on-one instructional arrangement and that is based specifically on that student. So we are going to be not only using database decisions because you would be using data that the teacher already has, because again, we're working on skills that they're currently working on. That's what you're going to be teaching. But also we want to make sure that you're individualizing their supports, that you're looking at the strategy that you're going to be implementing. And so let me slide down here to the actual template so that you can see it. Again, it starts here with just a general description of what the assignment is, but I'm going to move down here. I do want to say it's worth 25 points, this part of it, and there's a second part of it that we'll look at later. But for this part, what you're going to do is you're going to use this math planning form again for your one-on-one instruction. You're going to start by listing what your mathematics content is. What are you teaching? Are you teaching early numeracy rote counting? Are you teaching early numeracy patterning? What are you teaching? And then you're going to go into a description. And I have placed this down here at the bottom to make it easier for you and so you don't miss anything. So I encourage you to use this as your template. You can erase this or delete this stuff and then just include this. But what I want to know, because this is important, a lot of this information is important for your planning, but it's also important for me to get an overall view of the student you're working with. So what is the student's age, their grade level, their educational placement? Are they in a separate setting? Are they in a resource class, an extended resource class, full inclusion, etc.? What are their eligibility category or categories? The category under which they receive special education services. So do they have, a moderate intellectual disability? Do they have autism? Do they have multiple disabilities? If they have multiple disabilities, what are those multiple disabilities? Do they have any medical or physical considerations that you need to look at when you're planning? For example, is it a student who has perhaps like a cortical visual impairment? So you need to make sure that you place their, I don't know, their work on a yellow background, for example. Is it a student who has limited range of motion, in their upper extremities or in their neck? And so in that case, you're going to make sure that if they have a difficult time turning their head to the left, that you're going to place the materials within an easy sight and range of motion to the right. What related services do they provide? And these are brief descriptions. Let me say that. I'm not looking for two, three, four paragraphs. I'm just looking for a brief description of where the students are. Do they have any related service, or do they have, are they receiving any related services? What is their present level of performance related to the target skill? What are their strengths related to that skill? And then what are their areas for improvement? For example, if you're working on counting to 10, a strength might be that the student can count, rote count, or let's say you're rote counting to 10. Maybe right now they can rote count to 5. That's a strength, right? Maybe right now they can also count to 5 with one-to-one correspondence and they can identify the numbers 1 through 5, whatever that is. And what are their areas for improvement? For example, if they were working on counting I don't know, with one-to-one correspondence, maybe one of the areas of improvement is that they're not doing one number to one object. They're actually doing one number or three numbers or two numbers to one object. So maybe that's an area of improvement is they need to work on one number, one object. What is their communication like? Are they verbal communicators? Are they using a mixture of AAC and sign language? What does their communication look like? What are their social skills look like? What about their behavioral skills? Because you need to take that into consideration, right? When you're planning, I have to plan for your strengths. I have to plan for your areas of improvement. I have to plan for your communication. I want to build in social skills where I can. If there are any behavioral concerns, I need to make sure I address those and I'm teaching behavioral skills during my lessons. What kind of supports do they need? Do they need manipulatives? Do they need highlighting? And what is their current, not math, but math curriculum? What is the current math curriculum that they are using? If they're not using one, you can say there's not one, teacher made. Next, you're going to talk about your one-on-one method of instruction. So I need to know your response prompting strategy, and you may not use model lead tests. You get tons of practice through your observation and your past classrooms for model lead tests, so we want to use one of the strategies we've been learning in this class. And then what is your rationale for using that strategy? You can always go back and look at our PowerPoints for that strategy to see what your rationale may be or the readings from the week. If needed, what is the student's prompting hierarchy? What is their controlling prompt? What is their response interval? And then how will you keep the students engaged? How will you keep the students engaged? And how will you make sure that instruction is meaningful to them? So then here are the parts you're going to complete as well. You're going to have your standards, so your essential element, what your lesson objective is, and or your learning target. And I want you to make sure that for your lesson objective that you use the correct format. So I want to see a condition, I want to see a behavior, I want to see a criterion in your evaluation. Give me a brief description of that math skill. How would you describe it if you were telling a parent what you were working on? And then you need to have a real life theme. And this real life theme needs to be something that is motivating and of high interest to your student. So you're going to have to tell me why it is appealing. So, for example, if you chose Pokemon, why is Pokemon appealing to the student? Because they play it every day, because it's their favorite game, because I don't know, is there a Pokemon movie? Let's say there is, because they just went to the Pokemon movie and so it's on their mind and they're talking about it all the time. You are going to need to list at least 5 problems or tasks depending on what you're teaching. So I want you to make sure that they all focus on the same skill. So if you're working on rote counting and it's within 10, it could be that you write the first problem I'm going to give them, or the task I'm going to give them, is they're going to rote count to 3, then they're going to rote count to 6, then they're going to rote count to 10, then they're going to rote count to 2, etc. It could be that your problems are you're teaching math, and so you're going to teach simple addition, and you're going to list your addition equations for me. You're going to do 2 plus 4, and you're going to do 6 plus 3, whatever it is. Next, I want to know what kind of manipulatives you're using. And anytime you can, you want to be using manipulatives. So if there's a way you can figure out to be using manipulatives, I want to see them. And if not, I might come back and ask you for them. So go ahead and put it in there. You can either put a picture of your manipulatives, you can do clip art to kind of show me what it looks like, or you can do a description of those manipulatives. But again, if you are counting with one-to-one correspondence, what are you counting? What does that look like? And how does it tie into that real life theme? You are going to have a graphic organizer. So think about what kind of graphic organizer you can come up with. If you are struggling to come up with a graphic organizer, we have a number that are listed on this week's Canvas course, or you can reach out to me. You can do a search. I will tell you, you can do a search online for a graphic organizer. I'm happy for you to do that. And I do give you permission to look online for a graphic organizer. And then finally, you're going to take your task, you are going to take your complex task, and whatever it looks like, you're going to break it down into steps. You're going to do a task analysis. You will write out, and I need to see what the teacher says or does, what the student's response is, what kind of prompting is given. So if it's a system of least prompts, I need to actually see for that step what would your system of prompts look like? And if you put verbal prompt, that's not enough. What is the verbal prompt that you would give? If you're using constant time delay, what does your 0 second look like? What is your response interval, and what does that 3 second look like, for example? And then what type of reinforcement or error correction? I would like to see one error correction in there if at all possible. Actually, it is possible, so just put one in there. And then here is the rubric I will be using to score your math lesson one. So again, I always encourage you, reach out to me. If you start doing this and you get confused, reach out to me. I'm happy to serve as a think partner for you. I'm happy to review your stuff if you get it into me early enough and I have the opportunity because of my schedule. If I have the opportunity within my schedule, I'm happy to review it, but I encourage you to schedule meetings with me if you have any questions or if you need any support, okay? So that is going to be your math lesson, and then afterwards, you will implement it. You have to have this lesson plan approved before you can implement it. So hear that again. You will submit your lesson plan. I will review and score it, and if it is approved, you may implement it. I want to give you a heads up. Oftentimes, they are not approved the first go round, and a resubmission, revising needs to be done in a resubmission. That is very common. So don't worry about it if that happens, because you have to understand that before I can approve it, it has to be a really solid lesson before I can allow you to go out and teach students. So reach out for help. I'm here for you. All right, everybody, that is it. If you have any questions, let me know. And if not, I will see you soon. Have a good one. Bye.